welcome. My name is Patricia Lubeck. I'm a nurturer, a healer and a protector, and I tend to the big thresholds in life, whether that's birth, death or trauma. I'm so proud to present to you the end-of-life doula training and community educator course, Éascaitheoir Báis. We start on October 31st and we finish on February the 2nd, spanning the dark half of the year from Samhain to Imbolc. This course has been a really long time coming because death care and grief care is in my bones. I grew up in a small rural village where I watched my grandmother and mother tend to the community with sureness and compassion. From a young age, I learned that death was a big deal, but that the adults around me had the skills, the knowledge, the rites and rituals, and the capacity to tend to it. Not just so that those who were dying could leave with greater ease, but so that those who remained found the way to live life meaningfully, nevertheless. For the past nearly 15 years now, I have been in service to death and dying through community care. I've supported people at those massive thresholds, whether it was when their pet died, when their loved ones have to make decisions around end-of-life care, advanced care and assisted dying, or to witness the aftermath of sudden death, suicide or violent death. I have not only worked with people, but I have trained end-of-life doulas for several years, and I've mentored doulas and celebrants even longer than that. So I have a really firm grounding in a well-versed practice and supporting others as they develop into theirs. But most importantly, I have encountered death and dying so much in my life. From a young age, when several of my friends died in tragic accidents throughout my teenage years, I have witnessed really beautiful community care as the generation above my parents, not just my grandmother, but also the other members of the family, were nourished in ancestral care and handed over to death in gentle and meaningful ways. And most importantly, when I was faced losing my children at a late stage of pregnancy, I was capable of meeting that threshold with acceptance, with nourishment, with support, and with a sense of trust in myself and the process that allowed me to move through an experience that could have been very traumatizing in a really wholesome and graceful way. It was then that I realized that all the work I had been putting in was really paying off, and I couldn't imagine how terrible that time would have been if I hadn't had the skills, the rituals, and the understanding that I now possess. So in a way, this course is the calling of my ancestors and the lived experience in our modern world in response. We start on October 31st and we finish on February the 2nd. We've got 2 retreats containing our journey together. The first around Samhain, focusing on traditional death care, all the big topics of grief, death and trauma, and the knowledge that we can have to understand the processes at hand. It also covers the process of dying. What is good death? How do we use ceremony and ritual to mourn in more purposeful ways? And how can we hold each other through these ancient practices as we cross thresholds that we can't undo? The second retreat, the closing retreat, is all about taking that information and filtering it through your own lived experience. We're going to be looking at end-of-life care and eulogizing, storytelling your own life so that we can make meaningful decisions about how we want to live going forward. We're going to look at how we can be in business when something is an area of service, and how we can do that in ethical ways that still sustain us. And of course, we're also going to look at what part of death, grief, and end of life care is calling to each individual on the course. Because whether we're talking about personal death, pet death, or systemic death, the field is vast and all hands are needed. To bridge these two retreats, we're going to have lots of time online that you can use at your own space to look at the topics that are particularly of interest to you, to tune into the conversations and interviews I'll be facilitating with other grief and death care professionals, so you kind of hit the ground running, having an idea of their trials and tribulations and sort of what they've learned from that. And I'm also going to be providing you with lots of therapeutic care, so you'll have exercises and journal questions and one-to-one sessions with me to really look at the overlays of death and the experiences that you've had in order to show up for your clients in a slightly more integrated way. There's going to be peer support sessions and lots of materials for ongoing reading and just finding your way in a field that is so vast. If you hear the call and you want to join us, then come. This space is going to be one of lots of beauty. We will get our hands into herbs, we will create our own meaningful talisman and support structures. We will sit in ceremony with each other, learn through information, but also filter that information through our bodies and dive into the shared story of our mourning. You can join simply by signing up through this website, or you can send me an email at contact@patricialubeck.com, and I will help you sort out a payment structure that works for you and meets your needs as we go through this time together. If you have any questions, you can download the info pack. You can check out my social medias at birth.death.trauma, and I'm always here to have a call, to have a cuppa, and to get to know each other. Bigilin, join us.